Welcome to Trash Canon, a new podcast about B-movies. What separates Trash Canon from all the other B-movie podcasts and YouTube shows out there? Well, it's the only one hosted by me. But also, the idea is that we look... Well, this show is based on the theory that there is a mirror canon, a antimatter universe canon, if you will. We have the famous Hollywood canon, which encompasses movies like Citizen Kane and Star Wars. But there's also the trash canon, which includes all the B-movies that even people who aren't really in the culture have heard of, such as Samurai Cop, Vice Academy, Hobgoblins, pretty much any MST3K movie, yeah.
That answers my first question, because I was like, there's a trash canon, but then I thought about it for 5 seconds, and I'm like, well, there are 10 seasons of MST3K, so that's a good starting point.
Yep, and yeah, it's a pun. And joining me today is David DeMoss, who is the writer and presenter of And You Thought It Was Safe.
And thanks very much for having me, Chad. Long collab in the makings.
Yes, David and I were both writers for the Cold Fusion video back in the day, which I think was about oh God, how many years was it?
I was gonna say back in the day, like before any of these motherfuckers who say back in the day these days.
Exactly.
Back in the Paleolithic era of the internet. When giant sloths still walked the earth, and
appropriately enough, my updates to the website were on a geological time scale. I think at one point I seriously had like 2 years between updates.
Well, you poor bastard, you chose to actually have a life, by which I mean a career as a historian. By which I mean, of course, you spent years probably sleeping in library floors.
Yeah, exactly.
And now we can all, now I can join in on your trash culture festivities, though not on your unpayable amounts of debt.
Well, somebody has to. This is why I'm working on getting
those.
married.
I got my own.
So the idea is that I will host a different B-movie aficionado every month, but I shouldn't make any promises right now. But yeah, every podcast we will have a different guest on to discuss a different movie, and today's topic is the Nick Millard classic, Crazy Fat Ethel II, also known as Criminally Insane 2. I have a theory about that, but we'll get into that. So, yeah, take it away, David. Just describe the plot of the film for the listeners who have not been blessed with the experience.
Well, Crazy Fat Ethel II, also known as Criminally Insane, the second part of I guess there's 3 of them now, so I guess we have to call it a series, following...
Oh, no, there's only 2, sort of.
Here we go, First...
Yeah, it's a sequel, but it's part of a trilogy, or, dare I say, trilogy.
Ooh, dare.
Films that Nick Millard made, using his camcorder and filmed around his house. Yeah, the first film is Crazy Fat Ethel II, which is the sequel to Criminally Insane, a movie he made in 1973, and as far as I can tell, is his most successful movie, with scare quotes around successful.
Foreign, yes. But the series then follows the misadventures of one Ethel Janowski as she struggles to find her place in modern life, and in the materialistic hellscape that is first mid-70s, then late 80s. San Francisco, I want to say. It looks a bit like San Fran from the exterior.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I don't know if the original movie was filmed in San Francisco, but Priscilla Alden and Nick Millard were living in San Francisco by the 80s, I think.
And so, yes, Ethel's struggled to find her way in late 80s San Francisco and avoid the murderous rages that occasionally cause her to kill the entire cast of whatever movie she's in. Sometimes seemingly brought on in Crazy Fat Ethel II. Such rages are seemingly brought on by the most minor petty annoyances, and they're they're foreshadowed by flashbacks to Criminally Insane, which are basically just whole chunks of the first movie. Used to inflate the running time of the second movie, which is odd because neither one of them is more than an hour long. So what we have in Crazy Fat Ethel 2, which is also Criminally Insane 2, though I think your Jedi Master and rival, the Cinema Snob, correctly said nobody calls it Criminally Insane because Crazy Fat Ethel's a better title anyway.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I mean, yes, it's ableist and fat shaming, but it's also hilarious.
And you can't say it's not instantly memorable, right?
Yes.
Criminally Insane as a title could describe any number of fucking... But this is the Ethel Janowski saga. So her name should be in the fucking title, I would argue. It just makes sense.
It definitely does. And yeah, I mean, the movies that follow the rest of the trilogy, it's a different character. And I'm not just saying that, but like even the most dedicated, fan theory obsessed viewer wouldn't be able to connect the two characters together.
Real Nick Millard heads.
Yeah. And yet the Death Nurse of Death Nurse and Death Nurse 2, the rest of the trilogy, she too has flashbacks to the events of Criminally Insane for no reason. And because Death Nurse and Death Nurse 2 were both released on DVD. I've only seen the first one, but I watched it with Nick Millard's commentary. And surprisingly or not, he never addresses the fact that he's just using footage from his movie. I mean, you can excuse it in Crazy Fat Ethel 2 because it's the same character and she's having flashbacks to events that actually happened. But it's not the same character. It can't be the same character, and yet for some reason she is reflecting on events that happened to Crazy Fat Ethel.
And I did not do my due diligence and rewatch Death Nurse for this one. So I could only, but I can forward the theory that you know how sometimes you get a song stuck in your head, or how when you see a movie at a really young age or in a really formative period in your life, and it just sticks with you the whole time. You know, maybe she wandered into one of the, I'm guessing, 2 theaters that showed Criminally Insane during its original run in '75, and you know, something happened, like that was just a real bad time, made a real big impression on her. You know, that happens sometimes. That's the beauty of cinema, right?
Yeah, and it could even be, I mean, it was basically a Human Centipede 2 situation there. Criminally Insane inspired Edith Mortley, the Death Nurse, to go on her killing spree, and Nick Millard was just making an artistic statement about art's power over the human imagination.
The recursive nature of it, yes, over certain people. Which.
But let me take a minute. Oh, go ahead.
No, I would just say that's unfortunately fairly close to Mr. Frederick Wortham's take on the subject, which does not give me much hope. But yes, but you go ahead.
All right, I was just going to go into to the history of the film, which is more interesting than the film itself. Some might
Yes,
say.
please do, because of course. Okay,
We really don't have much to talk about. This might have been a horrible idea for
no. Well, I would. You know what? I would actually make some kind of a case for Crazy Fat Ethel 1 / Criminally Insane.
it. Yes. All right. All right.
Because
Let's get back to that after that.
unlike the okay, because unlike the other two, really, it's an actual movie. But okay, yes, you
Yeah.
please tell me how the hell this how this upside down civilization gets started, please.
Well, first off, not really related to the film, but I found it interesting, so I'm going to throw it in there. Nick Millard's father is B movie royalty, SS Millard. He was one of the first traveling roadshow filmmakers who went from state to state showing movies at local theaters. A career that started in 1920.
Holy shit!
He's known for like a lot of his ilk, he was known for sleazy films that were thinly disguised as morality plays. And probably his most famous movie was, let me make sure I got, yeah, Is Your Daughter Safe? Which I haven't seen, but from what I could gather from my admittedly brief research, was basically stock footage of venereal diseases and white slavery stitched together with a moralistic narrative.
Oh, great.
Uh, yeah. So that's where Nick Millard inherited his inherent interest with stock footage.
And love of cinema.
From
One.
Yeah. Yes. Speaking of that, Nick Millard started out in porn,
Like you do, yes.
a lot of the like a lot of the great directors of trash film, and Criminally Insane was his first quote unquote legitimate film, and probably his. And like I said, I couldn't find data on profits or anything, but from what I gathered, it was his most successful film critically and financially. Uh, Let me also segue into Priscilla Alden. She and Nick Millard were close friends in real life.
You
Priscilla
would kind
Alden.
of have to be, yes.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, it explains a lot. She put up with quite a lot, I would say. But she actually had a reasonably successful film career, appearing in bit roles in various movies. Most notably, 9 Months. Although she also had a small role in Quest of the Delta Knights. I don't quite remember. She's only credited as Old Woman.
And okay, that could be it. Yeah, but she is.
Yeah, so I need to rewatch it.
And we've
She is
I've personally never seen the, shall we say, unformatted version of Quest of the Delta Knights. So she might be in a longer cut that didn't have to get edited around MS3 or something.
Oh, that's true. It's true. Oh, all right. Well, we'll hunt it down so we can say that we're Priscilla Alden completionists.
Hell yeah.
Sadly, she passed away in 2003. Nick Millard, as far as I know, is still alive, but he hasn't made a movie since about the time of Priscilla Alden's death. And their last project together, and this is a mystery that I really want to solve, because I couldn't find any information about it except on IMDb. But apparently they made their last project together was an adaptation of the classic ghost story Turn of the Screw.
Oh God. Okay.
Which I could not find anything. But if anybody who happens to listen to this show can direct me toward it, I would be very grateful.
As would I.
Watching Nick.
You'd be
Because
doing
watching Nick Millard's take on a classic story is
Nick Millard.
It's something that I cannot. What were you gonna say?
Nick Millard's Fractured Fairy Tales.
Yes. Oh my God. Nick Millard presents the American classics.
Oh God.
Yeah, I cannot go to my grave without experiencing Nick Millard's Turn to Screw. So, But yeah, that's all I can. Sorry to shamelessly backtrack, but I also really wanted to add that when SS Millard promoted "Is Your Daughter Safe," he had in front of the movie theaters it was shown at, there was like a glass cage that a woman was inside, and that was his promotions for it. And he was arrested for pretending to be a nobleman in front of the deposed Queen of Romania. Or, well, I don't know if he was actually arrested, but he apparently got in some trouble because he tried to con the
Crash the party,
pretending
just
to
be
be a
like,
nobleman.
oh yeah, I'm so and so from the from the San Francisco branch of the Habsburgs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We're the ones that invested heavily in exploitations that branch of the Habsburg dynasty. Okay, but to talk about the movie itself, well, I mean, I guess we could go back to your comments about the original Criminally Insane. You wanted to defend the film's honor.
Because yes, at the very least, it has I would say actual characters. They don't
Yeah.
have they don't go through many arcs or anything. They really don't do much except sit around. What I suspected from the first was Nick Millard's house because yeah, the the funniest bit for me is that like in the first movie when it cuts to the interior and Ethel is being held down by an orderly injected with sedatives, the scene is so dark and it's lit by only one nightstand lamp
Yeah.
because that's probably the room that becomes Ethel's room later, and they're trying to pass it off as a mental institution.
Mm.
And yeah, not obvious at all. And the fucking doctor's offices with
Yeah.
with the intercom box like glued to the wall, like that's perfect. That's some prime 70s real estate right there. Yeah. But okay. So the problem, as with so many of these, mad killer movies in general, is that there's not really much time to get invested or care about much of anything because Ethel tends to, the murderer tends to murder everybody else in the cast.
Yeah.
And this is a problem in, but this problem is somewhat abated in Criminally Insane with the eventual introduction of Ethel's sister Rosalie and her failed actor slash boyfriend slash pimp John, who, yeah, at least they can have the horrible, abusive, misogynistic conversations, but they are at least conversations. Because the rest of the movie is just Ethel wandering around the house, eating, and occasionally talking to the dead bodies she's storing in Grandma's room.
Yeah, and also the racial slurs that
Oh,
Ethel
yes.
and all the other characters. But to me, that's actually what makes the movie really interesting because with the music, with the way the characters behave.
Dig that scratchy vinyl soundtrack.
Oh yeah, yeah, that too. But I mean, the movie actually does succeed in creating this poverty-stricken, working-class, urban atmosphere that's genuinely kind of interesting, and it's what makes the movie interesting. Now, I wouldn't say it's a good movie. I think I would
Oh, God,
probably
no.
call it passable, which sounds really, because it's just kind of there. But to me, what does sort of make it something that most people would at least find somewhat interesting is that white trash ambiance and the and Priscilla Alden's performance. Because I don't know if this is a controversial opinion, but I genuinely think that she was a good actress. That she, with all due respect to her friendship with Nick Millard, she might have actually been at least more of a B movie icon if she had hitched her wagon to anyone else's star.
Like anyone, anybody.
Yeah,
Christ.
or branched out at least.
Well, okay, she was on the wrong coast to catch the Lloyd Kaufman train when it was starting.
Right. That would have been great.
Wouldn't it though? Wouldn't it just? Because you're right. Because the other thing
Yeah.
is, despite my snark, goddamn, when the cop, that one cop, finally shows up after the looking after the grocery delivery boy that Ethel's murdered. By God, there is some actual genuine tension, and I'll be damned if I didn't feel a slight little spark in my chitinous heart, being like, oh shit, is Ethel gonna get away with this? Like how's it all gonna
Yeah.
unravel? How's it all gonna come down? It's I think today we would call it a thriller to my
Mhm.
my vague understanding.
Yeah, and I also think about the scene where she's I can't remember if it was the pimp boyfriend or another victim of hers, but he's crawling covered in blood, trying to get away, but there's no hope as she just stands over him and watches him with this bizarre childish curiosity before she finishes off, and she's just like softly chuckling to herself. And I
That's
mean, that scene
Yes,
is
that's
actually
Johnny.
effective.
No, that's
Yeah.
Johnny. Cause Johnny's the fucking worst, and I'm glad they took
Oh
more.
yeah.
I'm glad they took their time on him rather than Rosalie, because it's usually in subsequent slasher, it's usually the chick who gets the long extended sequence of suffering. But
Mhm.
no, this time it's nice to see the person who actually deserved it get it for once. I mean, there's a rare
Yeah.
couple
Oh,
instances in the Friday the 13th, but mostly it's the other way around.
oh, yeah. Oh no, I agree. But since you brought up Rosalie, yeah, the probably the most famous line from that movie, "You shouldn't have gone into Grandma's room, Rosalie." Like the way Priscilla Alden delivered it is actually genuine.
And yes, and I agree with you about that chuckle too. That's the chuckle of justice.
Yeah. About Crazy Fat Ethel too. It's harder to defend it.
Yeah, so the series picks up 13 years after the events of the previous after Ethel's crime spree is discovered. That's the other thing, right? The first movie, the murders are the centerpiece. Obviously, there's the first one is within 10 minutes, and
Yeah.
they're all kind of lingered over in that Herschel Gordon Lewis quick cut to pool of red paint kind of way. But then you still have a half-hour movie left to go, and it's mostly following Ethel's travails as she tries to cover up her crimes and get rid of these bodies in just the most inept way possible. That they keep getting frustrated, as if by some angry, malignant, malicious god. Like Crazy Fat Ethel 2 picks up 13 years later, and where Ethel's released and trying to make her way in a halfway house full of I feel generous describing them as character, honestly, because
Well, you were generous describing it as full love because there's only two, I think,
yeah,
two altogether. Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah, and there's what's her name, the woman in charge, but
Oh, Hope Bartholomew.
yes, yes. But okay, I will say this about the sequel. They have to throw Ethel out because of budget cuts, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And
why
it was like
why are there
politics.
budget cuts? Because it's 1987. Oh right, who's in charge? The guy who the president who was like, oh, we don't need any of these state mental institutions anymore. That's just a big waste of money. Let them wander the streets. And so,
And that was the premise for quite a few horror movies, if I remember right.
understandably so, because duh, it's right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. And they released Ethel because she hadn't been violent toward any staff member or patient in 5 years, which is I honestly, because when the doctor who the chief doctor, who is played by Nick Millard himself, uh, when he gives that criteria, he has another doctor say, that sounds like sound criterion, like the flattest way possible. So you honestly can't tell if it's sarcasm.
I'm, I, yeah, or just because do we know that that other doctor was probably one of his friends too, right?
Yeah.
Because like Crazy
Yeah, and just
Fat Ethel 2 has it really has the feel of a bunch of friends getting together to make a shitty movie. And there's a specific vintage of them from like the late 80s, because that became real popular once camcorders got cheap.
mhm.
And it is a vintage I very much recognize, because it was all over the video rental stores of the 90s where we all got our cinematic training.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's honestly why I think, because something I forgot when I was introducing the film is that it actually was released on VHS in 1988 under Video Treasures. Which, if I think of a word that describes Crazy Fat Ethel 2, it's a treasure.
Oh yes, the best. They had the best fucking names for these video distribution companies. Yeah.
But I agree with the cinema snob in that the only reason we're talking about this movie today is because of the title, and that's probably the only reason why anybody remembers it. But I honestly don't think it was Nick Millard's own idea. I couldn't verify this. I actually did do a bunch of searches to try to uncover the mystery, but I genuinely do think that it was the video distributor's idea because they saw the movie and said, nobody's going to want to watch this unless we give it like this insane title, and thus Crazy Fat Ethel 2 is born. Because honestly, I vaguely remember that the IMDb had it under the title Crazy Fat Ethel 2, and my conspiracy theory, my really pathetic conspiracy theory, is that Nick Millard actually changed it back to Criminally Insane 2. I don't know if that happened. I have no idea. It might have just been somebody who was pedantic and couldn't stand the fact that there's no Crazy Fat Ethel 1, and the movie's really Criminally Insane 2.
Wait. You're telling me that the Internet Movie Database may be overrun with pedants? No.
Well, I know it's crazy, right?
Say it ain't so, Santa. Say it ain't so.
They even say that might be true for Wikipedia.
Get blasphemy. The folks, we got the real dirt here. We got the real conspiracy. Keep everybody confused about the titles of bad movies. We got directors running around making sock puppet accounts they can use to obscure the record and order child porn from the pizza plate. Sorry, that happens.
No, I get it. And so when you look at a film like Crazy Fat Ethel 2, do you really think that it's just a title, or do you think that there's a certain element of it, a certain je ne sais quoi, if you will, that makes the movie
bit of a
worth watching beyond beyond the fact that you can just tell people, hey, I watched a movie called Crazy Fat Ethel 2. Is there a reason to watch it besides that?
I can attest to this from personal experience. There is something to the initial look on people's faces when you sit them down for a night over, or a party or something, and you're like, hey, have you heard of Crazy Fat Ethel? And everybody goes, huh, what? But then you pop it in, and it becomes apparent almost immediately that, whether we're talking about 1 or 2, or even Death Nurse, these are about the slowest hour-long movies you can possibly imagine. Like, honestly, even Blood Feast moves faster than this fucker. So yeah, it's not a complete party killer, but it wouldn't be my first choice. No, just because there's past the initial shock. Once that wears off, you have to have a certain crew of really low budget movie obsessive in order to have this shit hold the attention of a room. And really, to me, that has always been a good indicator of whether something is worthy of inclusion in the trash canon. Like, even some of the old MST3K episodes, no, no way I would subject people to like the crawling eye.
Yeah.
Because it just wouldn't hold. It's not crazy enough. Though I will, I do concur that there is a certain kind of, white trash mise en scène that my mouth wants to turn itself out inside out. I've said that in this context, but there is that, and the first film does capture it somewhat. So I might, but yeah, I've showed this to my Missouri cats, and after a while, it wasn't enough to hold them, unfortunately.
Yeah, I had a similar experience, but it was more positive. When I got the Death Nurse DVD, I did watch it with a few friends, and it more or less kept our attention. And two of the people who were with us were not really big into B movies. So it was kind of a success. But I would actually say that as far as we're ranking Nick Millard movies, Death Nurse is better than Crazy Fat Ethel II.
Easily, yes.
Yeah.
I can say that
just because
in quite a while.
Yeah, just because more stuff happens in Death Nurse, which might mislead viewers because, that's like saying mowing your yard manually with a pair of scissors is slower than literally watching paint dry.
Just because stuff is happening does not necessarily make it interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's like there's
Ridley.
Death Nurse has something resembling a plot, at least. Whereas Crazy Fat Ethel II, Ethel is sent to the halfway house. She runs into Hope Bartholomew. I think I'm mispronouncing the name. It's like I'm saying Bartholomew, and it's like Hope Bartholomew. No, she doesn't really do anything to try to help her. She and Ethel get into a couple of arguments over snacks. One of the other patients tries to... I'm getting ahead of myself. Ethel murders the asshole orderly, who's apparently like the only other staff besides Hope, because he he teases Ethel by eating a candy bar in front of her, and he feeds the entire staff with dog food, claiming that it's corned beef. And of course, we're treated lovingly to an entire scene where he slowly scoops out dog food onto 4 plates, which doesn't really make sense unless he was going to eat the dog food too, because there's only 3 patients, and Hope was gone, which was the whole reason why the orderly was in charge. So I don't know what's going on with that 4th plate. I don't know. It's another one of the many mysteries surrounding this film.
Sometimes you gotta really sell the joke if you want it to be completely. Though, okay, I'll give this movie this much. One of the other patients is totally Renfield. So
yes.
So, points for the Dracula. But yeah.
Yeah, did he think he was a lizard or a spider? I mean, I swear to God, I watched the movie yesterday and I can't remember that detail.
I honestly, in my head, I call him Spider-Man because, he's trying to crawl that wall. But
yeah, they probably don't even by that.
But I'll admit, I'm right there with you. It's, I took notes. And yes, in my notes, I call him Spider-Man a couple times, but then the other patient who apparently looks like the cop who arrested Ethel, though, is that the same actor? He's got a mustache.
No, it's I checked IMDb. The only actor who returns is Priscilla Alden.
Okay. So it really is just one of those, amazing coincidence. But
yeah, and also the whole thing about Ethel being delusional, that I don't know. Of course they never go anywhere with it, but it did leave what I think is one of the genuine moments where Priscilla Alden's performance works, and it's like the only time in the whole movie that a line is delivered with any sincerity or effort, and that's when she says, I knew you weren't dead, Granny.
Yeah.
When she fakes Hope is her grandmother. And
yeah.
Oh, and whenever she laughs, she gives her evil laugh. Those are like
that is yes, good points for the evil laugh. But yeah, okay. So it's because they do mention her paranoid delusion, but they don't really go much past the like people might be starving me. I need to eat the entire thing of bacon at once.
Or the getting angry over the pudding, and of course we have to watch her eat all the pudding.
None shall be seated during the riveting Jello pudding scene. Pay for the entire seat, but only use the edge.
Yes. But she, the other patient, the one who murdered multiple ex-wives of his, blackmails her, and I think only one or two scenes later, blackmails her for killing the orderly, which of course is deserved. Although they're not even in the same scene together, she just, she's supposed to be strangling him from the upper floor, from the stairwell. Yeah, but it's kind of obvious that they're not even in the same space, which is probably the least of the film's errors. I think my favorite is when Hope is.
Oh yeah, if we're gonna talk continuity errors, that is the least of its sins.
Yeah, because Hope answers the phone twice in the movie, and both times the phone isn't even connected, and that's. I mean, it's just sort of dangling off. It's not even connected to the cradle in any way. It's just
hanging around. Because, of course, yes, you'd want to unplug it so it doesn't ruin your shot, right? So, with somebody accidentally calling. This is the problem with using your own fucking house to make a whole movie.
Yeah, that's probably true. Or just do a reshoot if it happens. But.
That too, but yeah. And for the youngins out there, this is 1987, of course, when you still had to plug your phone into the wall. Get that out there. But of course, if you know what to look for, it can be very obvious when somebody is talking to absolutely nothing. You wouldn't even want the dial tone to accidentally mess up your already horrendous audio, which, not that we necessarily have room to talk, but still.
Your mic is starting to fade out a little bit.
Yeah, crap. Yeah. Okay. So we're still a work in progress around here, folks.
Yep. But yeah, the pivotal phone scene, and so Ethel stabs the blackmailer in the back with something like 6 or 7 knives, and they're all leaning right because they couldn't do an effect. And after the blackmailer's dead, she might have killed Spider-Man as well. I don't know. There's like a weird close-up shot of him with his eyes closed, but he's standing.
Yeah, can't help you there either. Could be either way. Otherwise, he has to be dead because otherwise he just disappears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or Nick just forgot he was there, and which is entirely possible. Or his final scene was cut during the, I'm sure, copious editing post-production process. But I skipped over probably the best part is when the police detective, who I don't think is ever named, shows up. And he is completely baffled by the case. The only investigating we see him do is interview Ethel, who he only asks her 2 or 3 brief questions. Ever occur to the detective or to Hope that the one patient of theirs who committed multiple violent murders could be the one who's committing the violent sudden murders again? It's because Hope her reaction to the situation is just to repeat the same lines of dialogue over and over again.
Almost like...
my motto, you must never give up hope. And nothing like this ever happened at Bartholomew's house before. I think I just gave like 40% of her lines just there.
It's almost like those were the only lines written for her. And, yeah.
Yeah, and of course Ethel kills her as well, attacking her for refusing to let her eat pretzels in her room. I have to side with Ethel on that one. That is kind of a bullshit policy, being allowed to have snacks in your own bedroom.
I gotta get me some Nilla wafers, honestly, because it's been too long. And you know, Nilla wafers in bed, motherfucker. That is the life. That is the goal.
I'm totally with you on either that or Pringles. I could go for either.
Try to cut down on my salt, honestly.
Fair enough. So she kills Hope, and we get like I think it's really the only Freddy style quip that she ever makes.
Yeah.
Unless I'm forgetting something.
Unless you want to count, you know, shouldn't have gone in Grandma's room, Rosalie. I mean, yeah. It's the
Which wasn't even part of the movie.
No, I mean it's like Ethel's quip game does need some work.
I guess I just lost hope.
But really, it's not her strength, and I've never agreed with the, you know, necessarily turning everybody into this strain amongst our slasher brethren. You know, the need to turn everybody into like Freddy, or because goddamn it, that's what gave us Leprechaun. Do we really? Yeah. It could happen again, people. We must not let this, you know, happen again. I mean, almost got there with Jigsaw and his disciples a couple times, but goddamn it, I'll give them this. They pulled it back, and this new wave of, you know, purge strangers, you know, silent or giggling maniac types. Goddamn it, at least they, you know, they're focused on the task at hand.
Yeah,
and not just spewing pop culture references. We're full. We're good. We got enough. It's fine.
I mean, that's one good thing I could say about Ethel as a slasher villain, is that she doesn't kill without reason, unless she killed the Spider-Man, which, you know, might have been a bit unfair.
They could have taken the whole paranoid delusion thing to its actual, because, you know, it's like poetry. They rhyme. You come back home.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you come back home, kill people, go back to the hospital, come back home, the whole cycle starts again. And yeah, Hope could be Grandma. You know, Spider-Man, he could have been somebody. I mean, the orderly can be Johnny, that's fine. Spider-Man could have been, I don't know, Rosalie, maybe, or the grocery delivery boy.
Yeah, either one.
And then you could have integrated your quote unquote flashbacks, your stock footage, in to make some kind of point about how it gets trapped in these self-perpetuating cycles, and, you know, and how it's, you know, so it can feel impossible to break out, and yeah, then at the end you have a different ending, a better ending.
It might be unfair, but I always got the sense that Nick Millard didn't have the most sophisticated understanding of mental illness.
Yeah.
I mean, because you could just see his reasoning with Ethel being delusional. It's just like, well, she's crazy, so she, you know, thinks it's all happening again, which doesn't really add anything to the movie. But anyway, yeah, by the ending, she might be faking, but I think the implication is that she believes that she's Hope now.
I don't think it's an act. No, I don't think it's intended to be an act. But then again, it's
because we get that mysterious scene where Ethel's just like running around the yard, prancing around with a dog that appears out of nowhere.
Is never seen again. Who is it? Is that just the neighborhood stray, I guess?
It might be Nick's dog.
Or yeah, maybe credit the dog. But then again, there's that scene in the first one where she's running around what looks like some maybe like a college campus commons area or something.
Yeah.
Just in.
Yeah, I guess they were trying to recreate that scene, but they didn't have permission to shoot anywhere. So.
Like they got. I somehow doubt Nick Millard was filling up paperwork for, like, you know, any of this. Or say nothing of that scene where in the first one where she drives to the coast, tries to throw the bodies in the ocean. Like,
oh yeah,
Like, that's just
I forgot about that.
No, that's just some to the side of the road shit right there. And she can't do it because a bunch of fucking tourists show up. At every turn, the superficiality and materialism of mid-70s ennui-inducing America frustrates her efforts to just, have some Nilla waves.
And we're back. Had some difficulties with the last recording, and this totally isn't being recorded 2 months after the older older.
Not at all.
No, because we have our shit together here. Definitely.
We are professionals. Yes.
Okay, so Crazy Fat Ethel II ends with a detective, the one who couldn't right away figure out that Ethel had to be the killer. Like I said, a mystery that would need Sherlock Holmes and Batman and Miss Marple combined to solve. He goes to the house to supposedly continue investigating or to confront Ethel, and of course it turns out that Ethel has killed Hope Bartholomew and believes that she has become Hope, or is pretending. But David, last time on the old footage, you said, on the old audio, you said that you think that she has snapped and is not pretending to be Hope deliberately.
Well, we get the creepy dream sequence in the last 5 minutes, right? That cannily reuses the stock footage of the end of Crazy Fat Ethel 1. So that that could be a psychotic break, or she could be masquerading. I mean, she spoke to, and he's a lieutenant, of course. I don't know why he's working a regular murder case, but I guess he fucked the commissioner's wife at detail this month. But it could be a psychotic break, or it could be her pretending. But either way, we know that she's fully liberated because she has her victory dance in the backyard,
right?
With a knife and the neighbor's dog, I imagine. Probably the same dog that starts barking during her round the couch chase scene with kindly Dr. Mustache.
Right. I forgot about that.
I just noticed that this time. I'm like, when the neighbor's dog do have a way of, noticing and contributing to the film, I guess. Uncredited role. There should have been like a credit, neighbor dog played by whatever, Benji or whatever his name was.
Yeah, so apparently it does end with Ethel being caught, although I don't know. I think it would have been more interesting if they ran with the implication that Ethel had was going to take over Hope's house, and
I wouldn't have minded a Crazy Fat Ethel 3 where she gets like a whole new crop of halfway house patients and has to deal with them. I mean, that would be the traditional, though it wasn't a tradition when they made this, but still, that would be the tradition, like a sequel trilogy goes, right?
Right.
It's like Return of the Jedi. Take your father's place at my side.
Yeah, and speaking about sequels, you hadn't seen the 2006 remake.
2016.
2016, that's
Jesus Christ. Instead of a sequel, we got a fucking remake that, no, I refuse on principle. I've been burned too much before. It's the Black Christmas remake that fucking burned me. That should have warned me. But then we got Rob Zombie's Halloweens and fucking Total Recall 2011, The Thing, RoboCop, like the whole wave of them. And that's why Hollywood, is taking notice now that enough of them lost money, and they've started doing remakes disguised as sequels.
Right.
Jurassic World being my example. This month, we'll see what happens, but.
Yeah, because there's that mini trend in the 2000s of B movies getting remade. And I called it a mini trend because it didn't really take off. And I know that there was that Plan 9 from Outer Space remake, which I only know about because James Rolfe, aka the Angry Video Game Nerd, was supposed to cameo in it. But I honestly don't know if it was even released. But yeah, the problem with that one is like, oh, it's Plan 9 from Outer Space, except done as a serious zombie movie, which, defeats the purpose.
Exactly. It completely defeats the point of remaking something in the first place is, they always talk a good game. Oh, we want to modernize it for, like gin it up for the modern audiences and stuff. But really, you're doing it because you got the name, especially these days. They're doing it because they have a name that is a known quantity, a distinct brand signifier with built-in audience. With trying to do that for us, like the audience for crappy B movies from the 70s and 80s, is we don't want some, blinged up thing from the mid to 2000s or 2000 teens. Like we go to these movies because, like, we seek these things out because they're crappy B movies from, forgotten eras that have been the maw of history. Mm-hmm. That's the whole point or at least it was for me, right? That's what I thought we were all doing here. And people seem to agree with me, with the possible exception of our poor fellow slasher fans in general.
Yeah,
I should say, who are, I admit, desperate, but at the same time, y'all did this to yourselves. You didn't have to see all those Saw movies.
Yeah, and I have to give a shout out though to the only B movie sequel remake that I actually enjoyed, which was Black Devil Doll, the remake of Black Devil Doll from Hell, because it just went in a completely different direction and made itself into a really old school, sleazy exploitation movie. You can't get much sleazier than a movie about a black militant serial killer from the 70s who gets reincarnated as a puppet and goes after white women.
Hey, it's better than, and like, especially since Child's Play seems to have ended, right?
Right. Yeah.
At least for now, though of course, dude went on to do Hannibal, so he's still in the game.
Yeah. So I guess the last question, or what was the last question before we had to redo the last act of this podcast, was, we talked about how great Priscilla Alden is, and how her performance is really what makes the original Criminally Insane worth watching. Not a lost classic or a diamond in the rough. I don't think either of us believe that, but she definitely adds something to the movie that makes it stand out. But do you think that her performance salvages Crazy Fat Ethel II at all, or?
Well, to a degree, I might say yes, because after she was the straight man for the first movie. By number two, she's into it. Mm-hmm. And you get things like her crazy laugh of triumph, whenever she stabs Edgar, or really whenever she thinks she's gotten away with any murder. And when she stabs original Hope Bartholomew, and she's just like, I guess I just lost hope. That's 6 out of 10 in the one-liner department, right? Yeah. At least she gets, in the first one she's kind of monotone, a little bland, but here she's like totally into it, completely embraced it, and it is nice to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I said it in the audio we salvaged, but yeah, I really just wish she teamed up with someone other than Nick Millard.
No kidding, right? Anyone else, and Jesus Christ, if John Waters had found her first,
yes,
we'd live in a much better timeline, I think.
Yeah, it would have stopped the election of Donald Trump and a lot of other things.
Exactly. Would have 10 years sooner, before Afghanistan. So that means no 9/11, no war on terror, except for maybe the war on hippies and eco-terrorists.
Yeah.
But at the very least, maybe we wouldn't be sliding quite so close to fascism today. So, Nick Millard, it's all your fault.
Exactly. That's what I've been saying for years. Yeah. But yeah, let me repeat that if anybody has knowledge about the Turn of the Screw adaptation that Nick Millard and Priscilla Alden did together, please let me know. I still haven't been able to find anything about it except on the IMDb. So,
if it does exist, I want to show it to my mom.
yeah, exactly. I just want to know if it exists or not. I can't pay you, but I will. Any award that doesn't involve actual money, I'll gladly consider it. All right, so I guess that's a good point to wrap up on. I am Chad Denton. You can find me on YouTube through Hollywood Hates History, or through the name of the podcast, of course, Trash Canon. And David, you can also find my blog, trashculture.blog. David, where can they find you?
Can be found at my website. That's And You Thought It Was Safe, AYTIWS.com, or YouTube for that. I should be the only thing that pops up, thankfully, so far. And yeah, I do movie reviews that are pretty much like this, shooting for twice a month. So come on over.
All right.
Water's fine.
Thanks for being on, and till next time.